Fela Kuti, born Olufela Olusegun Oludotun Ransome-Kuti, was a Nigerian musician, composer, and activist who is considered one of the pioneers of Afrobeat music. He was born on October 15, 1938 in Abeokuta, Nigeria, and passed away on August 2, 1997. Fela Kuti music included indigenous Nigerian music, jazz, funk, and highlife. His songs frequently contained complex rhythms, brass, orchestration, and socially conscious lyrics about political and social challenges in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. He utilized his songs to criticize corruption, oppression, and injustice, and as a result, he was frequently targeted by the Nigerian government. Fela was noted for both his music and his activism. He was an outspoken critic of the Nigerian government and military regimes. His outspokenness resulted in multiple arrests, beating, and raid on his complex, known as the Kalakuta Republic. Despite persecution and repression, Fela continued to use music to promote social change and cultural expression. His impact grew far beyond Nigeria, and he is still regarded as a legendary figure in the global music industry. Respected for his musical innovation and as well his unwavering opposition to oppression and injustice. Fela Kuti family belongs to the Egba branch of the Yoruba tribe. His father, like his grandfather, was a minister of the Protestant church and director of the local grammar school. His mother was a teacher, but later became a politician of considerable influence. She was a Nigerian feminist and political leader who was the leading advocate of women's rights in her country during the first half of the 20th century. Fela's first cousin Wole Soyinka was also a Nobel Prize-winning writer, and he sometimes spent his school holidays at the Ransome-Kuti home. As a youth, Fela would travel for kilometers to attend traditional events in the neighborhood. Convinced that his ancestors' real African culture must be preserved, his parents sent him to London in 1958, but instead of studying medicine like his two brothers and sister, Fela enrolled in the Trinity School of Music. While still a student, he married Remy, a Nigerian girl, and had 3 children. In his leisure time, Fela performed in a highlife and called Kula Lubitos, which includes other Nigerian artists living in London. One of these was J.K. Bremer, who had previously impacted Fela by introducing him to African music cycle in Lagos at the time when Western music was dominant genre there. Fela returned to Nigeria's capital in 1963. 3 years after independence. Soon after, he was playing highlife and jazz, leading the band with the musician who had returned from England. They continued to perform frequent in Lagos for a few years before Fela decided to accompany Kula Lubitos to the United States in 1969. Amidst the Biafran War in Los Angeles, he renamed the group to Fela Ransome-Kuti and Nigerian 70. At the club where they were playing, he met Sandra Isodore, an African-American female and close friend of the Black Panthers. She introduced Fela to ideology and writing of Malcolm X, Eldridge Cleaver, and other black activists and philosophers, allowing him to become conscious of the global connection amongst black peoples. Through this insight, Fela also gained a clearer understanding of his mother's fight for rights of Africans under colonial rule in Nigeria, as well as her support of the Pan-Africanist doctrine expounded by Kwame Nkrumah, the Ghanaian head of state who had negotiated independence for his country with the British. Fela discovered the inspiration he needed to develop his own distinctive musical genre, which he called Afrobeat. While he was living in Los Angeles, some of these new songs were recorded by the band before they left America. Once again, Fela renamed the group after returning home, calling it Fela Ransome-Kuti, and Africa 70. A number of singles from the Los Angeles recording were made available. Due to the popularity of this new African music in Lagos, Fela was invited to the Afro Shrine, a club located in the Empire Hotel. He had not yet switched to playing the saxophone or the keyboard. At that point, he was still playing the trumpet. Rather than singing Yoruba, he began singing largely in Pidgin English so that he could be understood throughout Nigeria as well as in nearby nations. He portrayed common social scenarios in his songs, which a sizable portion of the African populace could relate to it. His songs, which explored themes of Blackism and Africanism and promoted a return to ancient African religions, attracted young people from all over Nigeria. Later on, he would turn humorous and caustic towards those in position of authority, denouncing government in both the military and the civilian world for their crimes of mismanagement, incapacity, theft, corruption, and marginalization of the poor. In 1974, he erected a fence around his home and proclaimed it the Kalakuta Republic. Following his vision of a different kind of society, this act of disobedience quickly extended throughout the entire neighborhood, much to the dismay of the bourgeois segment of Nigerian society, as more and more people were motivated by Fela's stance. The authorities were on guard because they were concerned about his estate within a state and its possible authority. Fela was to endure beatings, incarceration, and arrest by the government on numerous times as a result of his harsh criticisms. After every imprisonment and violent altercation with the ruling class, Fela became increasingly vocal and changed his family's name from Ransom to Anikulapo, which means he who carries death in his pouch. His records started to sell in the millions as his fame grew, with more and more individuals criticizing the young people. Many of them were still in their teens, who left their families to live in the Kalakuta Republic. The country's population increased. His largest supporters, however, were Nigerians poor because his music addressed issues important to the Nigerian underclass, specifically a military government that profited from political exploitation and disenfranchisement. Fela was more than a pop star like Bob Marley in Jamaica. He was the voice of Nigerians' half-note, a cultural rebel. This was something Nigeria's military regime attempted to suppress, and from most the moment he returned to Nigeria until his death, Fela was pursued, imprisoned, and tormented, and nearly killed by a government determined to quiet him in one of the most heinous acts of violence against him. 1,000 Nigerian soldiers stormed his Kalakuta property in 1977. In 1978, the pioneer of Afrobeat, Fela Kuti, married 27 women in one day. This should not be strange to those who know the life and style of the Nigerian music legend nicknamed Abami Eda, Stranger. Many of Fela's band members became homeless after the devastating soldiers' attack on Fela's common Kalakuta Republic in 1977. In order to keep them together, Fela decided to do the unusual. He gave a piece of paper to his female band members requesting the names of those that would like to marry him. The entire 27 female band members put down their names. After getting their consent, Fela Kuti married the 27 women on the 20th of February 1978 at the Paris Sona Hotel in Anthony, Lagos, with the blessings of 12 Ifa priests. It was alleged that some parents of the ladies objected the marriage. Fela married the women to protect and keep them together. The marriage ceremony was attended by Fela's family, friends, and other band members. During the marriage ceremony, Fela rendered a short speech. pressed naira notes on his new wife's forehead and gave them marriage certificate. Fela embraced a rotation of 12 wives at a time. After the marriage, Fela took his 27 wives to Ghana for honeymoon. Following the Kalakuta disaster, Fela briefly lived in exile in Ghana until returning to Nigeria in 1978. In 1979, he founded his own political organization, MOP, known as Movement of the People, and changed the name of his band to Egypt 80 at the start of the decade. As the 1980s came to a close, Fela released searing attacks on Nigeria's corrupt military regime, as well as broadside on Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, most vehemently on the album Beast of No Nation. Never what you would call progressive when it came to relationship with women or patriarchy in general. The truth was that he was sexist to the extreme, which is ironic given that his mother was one of the Nigerian's early feminists who was slowly coming around to the struggle of African women. Nigeria was under civilian government from 1980 to 1983, and Fela recorded and traveled ceaselessly during this comparative quiet period. In 1983, military authority was restored, and in 1984, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for cash smuggling. In 1985, with the support of the Amnesty International, he was released. However, in 1986, shortly after his release from prison, Fela Kuti divorced his 27 wives on the claim that marriage brings jealousy. It should be noted that they were not forced to leave his house after the divorce. Some lived with him till his death in 1997. Fela sustained a shattered skull and numerous broken bones. His 82-year-old mother was thrown from an upstairs window, inflicting injuries that proved fatal. The military set fire to the compound, preventing firefighters from reaching the scene. His whole recording studio, master tapes, and musical equipment were destroyed. Fela's musical output declined in the 1990s as he became increasingly ill physically. His death from AIDS complication as August 3, 1997, had a global impact on musicians and fans as he was silenced, leaving a musical and socio-political voice comparable to Bob Marley. On the occasion of Fela's death, the United Democratic Front of Nigeria issued a press release that stated, "Those who knew you well were certain that you could never compromise with the evil you had opposed your entire life. Despite being weakened by time and fate, you maintained your determination and never gave up on your objection of a free, democratic, and socialist Africa." This is a concise summary of Fela's political program as one could hope to find.